Good afternoon, everybody. It's 5 o'clock, our appointed starting time, so I thought we'd go ahead and start. Um, They built a nice stage for me here, but given the size of the crowd, I thought it'd be better if I stood down here and we can walk around or whatever and have a better conversation this way. Um, My name is Doug Quimby. I am the president and principal owner of La Plata Communities, Inc. La Plata Communities is a Colorado Springs-based master plan community development company. It's been in business for over 25 years, been very successful. I've personally been in the real estate development business for over 40 years. Um, La Plata Communities is the manager of a limited liability company called Redlands 360 LLC. The partners of Redlands 360 LLC are a La Plata entity and another company called Grand Junction Land Company, which is owned, which has been the longtime owner of the property. They've owned this property since the 90s. Grand Junction Land Company. That's about all I'm going to say about La Plata or the company itself. I know most of you probably don't care. If you want more information about us, you can go to GJ Speaks, watch our presentation that we gave for the metro districts. It has the opening sections is about La Plata. You can go to our company website, laplatahome.com. Get all kinds of information about us there. We'll also pretty soon have operational a Redlands 360 website, and somebody will talk about that a little bit later. And you're certainly, when we get to the question section, you can certainly ask whatever you want about our company. Now, I'm probably viewed as an interloper from Colorado Springs, but my family came to Grand Junction in the early 1960s. Many members of my family have lived here since. My late mother was the mayor of Grand Junction for many years. I left to go away to college, but I've certainly kept in touch with Grand Junction, spent a lot of time there. Been on the board of trustees of this university for the last 8 years, and I really do care deeply about Grand Junction. I think it's a really good place, and I'm not just somebody that's coming over here to make a buck. So I like to get to know the audience a little bit. So if I have a few questions for you, if you don't mind answering, how many of you live near the property and got the official notice of this meeting? Okay, most of you. So the rest of you I presume live elsewhere in the community and are just curious about what we're doing. How many of you have ever been on the property? And keep your hands up if you regularly use it to walk or hike or bike. Pretty much everybody. Please raise your hand if you are, generally speaking, anti-growth, anti-development, or just don't like developers. Well, good, then we have a chance. Who's generally okay with growth and development in the community, but you just don't want to see it on this particular property? Well, there's 3 or 4 honest people here. Again, that's good news. Maybe we can have a productive conversation. Okay, that's enough of that. A fact is, Grand Junction is going to grow. Growth is inevitable here. And why is that? Because Grand Junction is a very cool place. It's become a really nice community. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to work, great place to play. And people want to stay in or move to places like that. So if growth is going to occur, the challenge we all have is to make sure that it's done right so the Grand Junction stays a cool place. And hopefully, well, not hopefully, that's what we are planning to do. I think it's accurate to say there has never been a project like this in Grand Junction. First of all, there's the sheer size of the project, 630 acres or so, about a square mile of land. Most of the developments, in fact, I'm quite sure there's never been a development contiguous under one owner that's been that big. Also, it's an infill project. It's not out on the fringes. It's surrounded by development. There's development that already exists on all four sides of this project. The size also dictates that this property is going to be very long-term development. It's not going to happen overnight. It's at least 20 years before this project will be built out. Another interesting thing about this project that makes it unique, and you all raised your hands to show this, is the historical use of this property. Thousands of people from the region and from elsewhere have gone on this property and hiked and biked and just looked around and had a good time. So, you know, you feel like you have some ownership up there. But the fact is, it is private property. And it's been private property forever. And the current owner, Grand Junction Land Company, has owned it for almost 30 years. So, but I want to make one thing very clear at the outset. It's our intention to continue to allow public access to the property, to preserve and improve the trails, to let people continue to do what they've been doing for many years. So that's our commitment to you. And as long as we can get a project approved with that, that's our intention. The community is going to be designed and built around the trails, the outdoor activities, recreation opportunities, and open space. You'll still be able to walk your dog, hike, bike, or run on the property. And you might even find we're going to do some things up there that allow lots of other opportunities for recreating on the property. So much of the property will be preserved as open space, and in some ways we're going to improve the trails that are there, and we'll talk about that more later. And finally, I think it's fair to say this is the first true master plan community in Grand Junction, as that term is generally understood in the development industry. So what makes a master plan community? First of all, it's community. It's not a bunch of subdivisions. It's an integrated single plan under common control. Everything fits together. It's not a bunch of unrelated, small, disconnected subdivision developments that can add up to a big impact. It features a variety of products. It's not all half-acre, very expensive lots. It includes single-family detached lots and homes of all different sizes, attached products, single-family, maybe for rent, townhomes, maybe condos, apartments, single-family for rent, all kinds of property types with a mixture of lot sizes and densities. And we'll talk more about this when we get into the plan so you can see what we're talking about. There's also a range of prices because there's a range of products. It's not just wealthier people that can afford a half-acre lot and $1 million house. It's nurses and firemen and policemen and school teachers and rich real estate developers. You know, there's a place for everyone. Now, having said that, I want to make clear there's probably not going to be any entry-level housing there. It's too expensive to develop in the Redlands. You can't really have entry-level, but there will be a range of prices and products in this project. There'll also be commercial, primarily to serve the community that's created there. There's going to be an overall cohesive plan and systems for traffic, stormwater, drainage, infrastructure. There'll be architectural themes and design guidelines that fit with the land and with the local area. There'll be both variety and harmony. It's going to be extensive common areas, community landscaping, art, things like that. Amenities, we already talked about trails, parks, open space. Some will be public, most will be public, some will be private. Lots of different recreation facilities. There will be strong covenants with a professional, active homeowners association. Master plan communities allow some things that you can't otherwise do because of economies of scale. The size allows them to construct off-site improvements, which most subdivisions can't do. So, you know, I'm sure we'll be required to and will be adding off-site improvements, road improvements, traffic lights, who knows what else, whatever the city requires, off-site to mitigate the impacts. And finally, I just want to go back, when you put all that together, you have a real community of people that relate to each other and know each other and like each other and look out for each other. And you have a mixture of income levels and home types and ethnic groups. And, you know, that's what we're trying to create here. Certainly there are going to be changes and impacts which are not good. You know, if we had a whole bunch of homes, there's going to be more traffic in the area. I'm not going to try to deny that, but it's not all going to happen tomorrow. We're not building 1,000 homes tomorrow. You know, we're building maybe 80 a year if things go really well. You know, but there are a lot of, some of the open space is going to go away. It's not going to be all open space. There's going to be a lot of houses up there. Times there's going to be the inconvenience of construction. There's more kids in the schools. But again, this isn't going to happen all at once. It's going to happen over a period of time. It will be mitigated. We have to pay for most of this stuff. So the impacts will be slight, and overall, very well, we expect will be an improvement. And of course, it's going to provide jobs for the construction industry, for lawyers and accountants, for suppliers of materials and subcontractors, and it will be a boon to commerce for the time that the project is being built. One of the questions that's come up in previous dialogues we've had with citizens is, okay, we understand you want to develop, but this land is so cool. Why do you have to develop this land? Why can't you go up north and find 600 acres and just develop up there? Well, besides the obvious answer, which is this is the land that we own and control and have owned for 30 years, there are many reasons why this land. So here are my answers to that question. Why here? Because it's a fantastic, beautiful piece of land. Because it's the best development parcel in Western Colorado, maybe in the whole state. Because it's such good property, it is going to be developed someday by somebody, and we think that we can do it better than anybody else. And I think we have the track record to back that up. I don't want some other developer to screw this up, to come in and close down the boundaries and shut down all the trails and make some exclusive enclave, which would be a common choice among developers. We're not going to do that. I want to do it because it is an infill project. It's surrounded by other development. It's close to infrastructure, roads and services. And infill is the most responsible way to develop because it makes the best use of existing services and resources. Compared to developing on the fringes, it has lower public costs, less traffic, shorter commutes, better accessibility, and all kinds of other advantages. I want to build a community based on the outdoor recreational ethic of this area, where people can still walk and look and hike and bike close to their homes and really enjoy this land. As I said, we're going to preserve much of what is here and make it better in some ways. I want hundreds of people to be able to wake up every day and look at the fantastic views up there. Watch the sun come up, or in the evenings, sit on their decks or their porches or in their yards and watch the sunset. I want a lot of people to be able to enjoy those spectacular views. And I want people from all walks of life, to be able to live in a place like this and enjoy this place. So that's why we're developing this piece at this time. Like now, we're going to provide some more detail about the plans. After that, we'll open it up for questions and dialogue. And hopefully we can have a good discussion. You can give us feedback on what you like or don't like. Hopefully there's some things you like. And so I want to introduce Cody Humphrey. He's our Director of Planning for La Plata. He's going to be up next and he will introduce the vision for the property. After that, Ted Chavone, our local land planner, will go over the actual plan that we have that we're going to be submitting to the city after this series of meetings and taking into account whatever feedback we get. Also, Jane Quimby, who's our local project manager. She's here. She's in the back. She'll be giving you some more information at the end. She's the person to contact with questions because she is local and very, very accessible. So with that, I'll turn it over to Cody.
Thanks, Doug. I'm going to stand behind this podium here because I've got my notes right here, but and also the camera's on me. So I don't like this formality either. I'd like to rather be down talking with you rather than at you. But my name is Cody Humphrey. As Doug said, I'm the Director of Planning for La Plata Communities. Basically, my job with this presentation is to talk to you about the vision for the community. Doug did a good job on highlighting a lot of the points that I'll be talking about. But with any master plan community, you always want to have a vision for the path towards, what this community is going to look like, what types of amenity packages that you're going to be able to provide for your residents, different details, types of architecture, and so forth. I'm going to be doing that overview, and then I'll be passing it on to Ted, who will speak more about the logistics of the plan itself. So before we do that, I'd like to actually do a quick project overview here. As we talked about, Redlands 360 is 624 acres. It'll be developed with a spectrum of residential products and a variety of active and passive recreational opportunities. It's anticipated that the community will have somewhere between 1,300 and 1,800 units at full build out. And that's over the course of, we anticipate about 25 years, 20 to 25 years. It depends on the market. That density range gets us somewhere in the 2.16 to 3 DU per acre, dwelling units per acre. The project also plans to incorporate roughly 3.2 acres of commercial property. So one of the first things you notice when you visit the site is obviously the views, the 360-degree views of the surrounding areas. Those views incorporate the Colorado National Monument, Grand Mesa, and the Book Cliffs. Directly to the east, the property also has views down towards Redlands Mesa Golf Course, and is also located a short drive or a short bike ride away from the very popular Lunch Loop trail system. Due to the land being surrounded by the existing development, as Doug mentioned, the community can essentially be considered an infill project. And because of this location, the site itself is well positioned to be able to utilize the existing city infrastructure adjacent to this property. So with that, I'd like to jump into discussing what the vision is for Redlands 360. A quick definition of the community vision, as I mentioned earlier, can simply be described as an image of the community's future. It's a way to help define the direction of the community and serves as the beginning of the master planning process. The vision of Redlands 360 consists of 4 different elements. Those elements include the land, the modern history, meaning the last 20 to 30 years of its use and what's happened with the land. Again, the views, and we'll discuss a little bit about the amenities that we are proposing. So the land always plays an important role in determining what the vision of the community is. The uniqueness, though, of the Redlands 360 property is what makes this community so special. The majority of the 624 acres sits on an elevated mesa that generally slopes to the north. Also, the site has 4 major plateaus, which we've coined the 4 Brothers, and that's a play off the Three Sisters Park. We'll talk more specifically about what those plateaus are here shortly. The 4 Brothers, along with the existing natural features of the site, including the topography, the drainage ways, and the scattered vegetation, inspire the community planning to not only preserve as much of this character of the land, but enhance it as well. The 4 major topics that we're going to discuss here in the next few slides are the overall character of the land, the topography, the drainage patterns, and the 4 Brothers plateaus. So in this slide, you can see the different types of characteristics, if you want to call it, of the land itself. You have a lot of different topography, a lot of rock outcroppings. You can start to see some of the different views from the property itself, as well as the existing vegetation. Are all just a few of the on-site attributes that the project will look to preserve and enhance. In this graphic here, this is what is called a slope analysis. If anybody's familiar with this, this is basically one of the types of diagrams that we generate in order to understand the site itself. And basically the different colors, if you can see, everything that's clear that you can see with the aerial below it, that's 0 to 10% slope. Everything in green is a 10 to 20% slope. Everything in yellow is a 20 to 30% slope, and anything that's in pink is 30% or higher. And so what you can see with this map is that 11% of the total land mass, or about 70 acres, is over 30%. And anything over 30% is considered undevelopable, and rightfully so. 20 to 30% does present challenges at that slope. And so you can see that 16% of the total land mass is 20 to 30%. So you can also start to see where the 0 to 10% slope percentages, there's about 40% of the land and where that is located on site. Here are the four brothers, and these are the four plateaus that you can see on site. And obviously, if you guys have been out there on the property, you probably generally know where these four are. And I'll have a couple of pictures that show that shortly. And then these are the three major drainage ways between those high points. And so really you start to see this rhythm in the land where you have a high point, low point, high point, low point. And it goes from kind of the northwest to the southeast portion of the site. And these are the things that we look at when we're doing master planning. And these are the things that we build on, the characteristics of the land that help enhance the community and make it unique rather than just ignoring them or putting homes on top of these features. This starts to talk about open space. We'll get into that more. So this view here, you can start to see, this is a view looking north, and you can start to see the rhythm that I'm talking about. The high points are the lighted areas, the low points are the shadowed areas. And this is late in the afternoon, and so you can see the sun coming from the west, casting light onto the high points and shadows down in the low points. Again, another view. This is looking east. Again, you can see the consistency and rhythm of the property. High points lit up, low points are the drainage ways. And here you can specifically start to see the four brothers. In this particular photo here, those are the four brothers that we start to, recognize as opportunities for part of the amenity package that we'll be providing. Trails to the top of these locations, preserving these areas for open space. So these are the things that create the character of the community and what we want to enhance rather than take away from the community or from folks like yourself who've used this property for the last 20 or 30 years. So next I'd like to talk about the modern history. So to many locals, this property is known as the water tower parcel. Many miles of social trails have been created throughout the decades of use by the area residents. The stewardship, though, shown by the users and trail advocates is evident when hiking and biking these trails. It's really cool. It honestly is. It's pretty neat. You go out there and the land is clean. It's not, there's no trash. It's well taken care of. And it's obviously not by us, it's by the users. And so there's obviously a certain level of pride by those who do use this property. So we recognize the property's value as an open space amenity to local residents. And we are aiming to preserve several of the more popular trails along with hundreds of acres of open space. The following three specific elements of the modern history will be highlighted in the following slides. And those are the land stewardship, the hiking and biking trails, and art and fun. We'll take a look at that here in a second. So again, despite the property having private ownership, it's evident that the local users have been respectful of their time spent on the land. The property has become a recreational destination to many locals due to the proximity of the surrounding housing developments. And for this reason, many have taken care of it as if it was their own. For this reason, though, as we move through the master planning and detailed design of the community, the development team intends to incorporate hundreds of acres of open space as well as preserve and enhance several of the more popular trails found on the property. So you can see here in these images, these are several of the more popular trails. I'm sure that you recognize some of these. I've actually mountain biked this property as well, taken most of these photos, and recognize that there's some really unique aspects to the property. And then those trails, For instance, the drainage way on the right, bottom right there, that's a pretty fun trail for those who have ridden it before. And we recognize that. And you'll see that when Ted gets into more of the discussion about the master plan, you'll see how we're making an attempt to try to preserve some of those trails. So the well-known gnomes that used to grace the pinyon pines in that area to the west also provide an artistic flair to the land and the existing vegetation. Now, to be clear, we know that these gnomes were not actually located on our property. They have been since removed. I think probably the person who created this, the artist, was probably concerned about what would happen to them. But in my perspective, and I know my team's perspective, is that this is the type of stuff that we embrace. This is really cool. This is what adds character to this property. This is the type of stuff that creates placemaking. So from a planner standpoint, this is the stuff that we want to enhance. These are the types of creative, artistic flair that we like to see. That doesn't happen or isn't programmed. It just happens because people love the land. And so I wanted to share this as another reason why people are taking care of the property like they do. And then finally, a little bit of fun. Mr. Skeleton here, he's got his mask on, so he's COVID safe as well. But that's another item that you find out on the property that's, adds to the character of the land, and we're looking to embrace that as well. Now, I mean, would we provide that as an amenity? Maybe not, but these are the kinds of things that we like to embrace. So the third item I like to talk about are the views. The views from the property are genuinely amazing. Obviously, this is probably part of the reason why you guys go up there. One can have a view of the Book Cliffs, Grand Mesa, and Colorado National Monument from multiple locations on the site. The majority of the property's upper mesa also provides enough elevation to overlook Grand Junction, be able to see the city lights at night. This 360-degree views are the important aspect that will drive much of the planning and community design. They're also the reason why we named the community Redlands 360. So the following slides highlight the amazing views towards these four distinct natural features. They are Colorado National Monument, Book Cliffs, and depending on if you're a local or not, there's a couple of different ways you can spell it. I had to do some research on that, but there's two ways of spelling that. Grand Mesa and Uncompahgre Plateau. So looking southwest towards the closest of the four natural features, a view towards the Colorado National Monument is obviously a pretty amazing view. The towering Red Canyon plateaus they command your attention, and from many vantage points on the property. To the north, the Book Cliffs create the northern horizon when viewed from Redlands 360. The distinct crevices and shadows and the amazing color provide views that are pretty much unmatched. And this is a specific view from the property itself at sunset. Looking east, the Grand Mesa stands tall with the rising full moon in the background. It's interesting with the Grand Mesa because it's completely contrasted with the other views because of its lush vegetation, but definitely a view worth capturing from the site. And finally, Uncompahgre Plateau to the southeast with the Domingos Escalante Conservation Area in the middle ground is an incredible view worth taking in. It may be the furthest of the four options, but still holds its value as an important view. And finally, the amenities. The community will offer a variety of outdoor-focused amenities, both active and passive in nature. A multitude of public parks, open spaces, multi-use trail systems, enhanced landscaping, unique fencing and signage, and possibly community art are all elements of amenity package envisioned for Redlands 360. The 4 following amenity types will be highlighted in the upcoming slides. Those are the parks and open space, the trails, fencing, monumentation, and the community landscaping. So this series of images here are just a sample of the type of public amenities that are planned for Redlands 360. A miniature incline. So I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with the incline in Manitou Springs, but we thought that a miniature one or a series of them would be something fun to be able to actually hike up, work out on. It's amazing the number of people that use the one in Manitou. And we think that there's probably a pretty cool opportunity to do something like that here. Trailhead facilities will provide residents and pedestrians easy access to parks and open space. The community is also considering the use of art in strategic locations to enhance one's experience of the community and add placemaking value. Active and passive park spaces will also be considered when designing the various public park nodes. So you can see the horse there. That's a sample of a potential sculpture that you may find in the community. Obviously, the trailhead there with signage. That's a potential trailhead look. And we understand that because of the nature of what we're providing here, trailheads are going to be important in order to allow people access from outside the community to park and be able to use the amenities within the community. The other photos are, potential imagery of parks and, shaded areas, public areas. We understand that obviously in this particular area, there may not be a huge opportunity for massive shade trees. So we may have to recreate shade with structures and with sunshades, like the one middle image there. So again, these are all the ideas that we are playing with and that we really would like to incorporate into the community. Next is the trails. So what you're going to see here, a variety of different trail systems and trail types, I should say. The images on this slide represent that variety that we will be offering, including single track, soft surface and hard surface trails. Signage will also play an important role in wayfinding throughout the community. And so again, we're going to make sure that we offer different types of trails for all different types of users. And then fencing and monumentation. So we're looking at 4 different types of fencing. We are proposing 4 different types of fencing in this master plan community. So the reason why I bring this up is that this adds to the character of the community. This adds, a lot of times communities will have a single type of fence or maybe 2 different types, and that's it. What we really like to do is enhance our communities with different types of fencing and walls that all have some consistent element of that bring everything together. So for instance, you're looking probably at the bottom right-hand corner and thinking, are you really going to build something like this? No, not necessarily. The zigzag wall, the zigzag fence, I should say, is we would actually take an interpretation of that type of wall and use a modern take on it and, bring it into the 21st century, if you want to call it. That type of fence is a pretty traditional fence that you see at a lot of ranches, but it's a cool look of a fence that could take a different spin on it in terms of the type of materials that we could use to create it. The gabion wall up in the right-hand corner there, a lot of times people build those with existing stone and rock that they find on their property. It's also a really interesting looking wall and separator, if you want to call it. So it's a interesting form that's got a rustic look to it, but it can take a contemporary twist to it as well. The other fencing are different options of fences and walls that we are looking at. A lot of times you'll see some of these walls used as entry monumentation. And so these start to build the character again of the community itself. And so these are the ideas that we were playing with. And finally, the community landscaping. Just a couple of images of that depict the potential community landscaping for Redlands 360. Xeriscaping, or low water use shrubs, trees, and perennials will be considered when landscaping common areas, parks, and open space. Color of these plants and the art will be used strategically to help keep common areas interesting and alive with energy. Turf will be used minimally, but only used to create oasis effects in parks and in entry monumentations. Overall, the community amenities will be used to bring life to the vision that has been established for Redlands 360. And finally, I'd like to share with you the design drivers that we've come up with internally with our team. And so these design drivers help us make decisions, and we establish them early, and then we go back to them when we have to make a decision, which has to do with anything that has to do with the planning and design of the community. And so we rely on these design drivers 10, 15, 20 years from now when we're moving through the community and developing different parts of the community. So with that said, the first one is create a master plan community that focuses on promoting a pedestrian-oriented atmosphere, an inclusive culture, and an outdoor lifestyle unmatched by any community within Grand Junction. The second states, commit to putting pedestrians first, where uninterrupted open space and a variety of trail types offer a safe alternative means of transportation for residents throughout the entirety of the community. The third design driver states, celebrate the amazing 360-degree vistas, unique landforms like the Four Brothers, and the social trails found on the site through a conscious effort, preservation, and enhancement. Number four, offer a variety of amenities specifically geared toward getting residents and families to be outdoors and active within the community. The fifth design driver states, provide a mix of housing product and architectural styles that establish a unique community character at a variety of price points. And sixth design driver states, provide enhanced community landscaping that is water conserving, xeric in nature, and appropriately fits the existing geography of the Colorado Plateau. So with that, I'd like to pass it on to Ted Chavone, Principal Planner for Redlands 360 Community and owner at Chavone Roberts and Associates, a local planning and landscape architecture firm here in Grand Junction. Ted will be presenting the various aspects of the proposed outline development plan as well as the planned development zone. Thank you.
Thank you. I also want to quickly point out that we have a number of people from the city staff here. I may not catch them all. Tamara, Director of Planning, Jared, Development Engineer, Trent, Head of Public Works, Lance, City Planner, Kristen in the back is our planner on our project, and I'm not recognizing other people with their masks on, so I apologize. La Plata Communities, Inc. recently submitted for their annexation and Metro District. These were, the annexation is for 240 acres, the Metro District is for over 600 acres, and they're now seeking to incorporate those actions with the actions I'm going to be showing you tonight to create a unified 600-acre plan development, which you've been told is a mixture of single family, multifamily, and about 30,000 square feet of commercial. I'll try to not repeat too much what's already been said. 600-acre parcel, you can see the general outline of it. There's 5 parcels that make this up. Parcel 1, Parcel 2, Parcel 3, Parcel 4, and Parcel 5, which is on the corner of South Camp and Redlands. There's also this Bureau of Land Management parcel. Okay, what did I do? There we go. Found it on my own. The Bureau of Land Management parcel down on the south end. There's about 300 foot of elevation change between those, and from the top to the bottom of the project. And as noted, the processes we've already started are the annexation in the Metro District, but we are also doing the annexation of parcels 3 and 4. So that would be these 2 parcels right here. We're doing the rezoning of parcel 2, which is this one, currently zoned R4. And we're going to be taking all of the parcels collectively and making them into a planned development zone. There's specific guidelines and driving documents that we use from the city. The first one being the existing zoning. So this is showing you what is not colored is in the county and that which we are annexing. And they are both, it's a county PD zone on that and a county R4 zone here. The rest of this is already annexed, but we are again looking to make it all into a planned development zone. So this is one of our driving documents. Also, I'll say we cannot really derive a density off of the existing zoning because we don't know what the density was on that underlying planning zone with the county or which is within the city now. The future land use plan is the document that is, again, our guide of the direction to go in. There are 6 categories of future land use on this property. It goes from a conservation, residential low, residential medium, residential medium low, residential medium high, and neighborhood center. Those all occur, wrong button. Those all occur within the boundary, generally going from a higher density commercial or the neighborhood center to the lower end. And that is the existing growth plan, which we are taking into consideration. I can apply a density to these because each one of these has a range. And when I apply that density range to this, this project could be anywhere from about, let me see where my numbers here, from about 850 units on the low end. And for example, if we came in lower than that, then the city would say, no, you need to raise it, to a maximum of 7,275 units. I don't think any of us want to see 7,000 units up there, but that's the range that I can derive off of this plan. So when we're coming in with the idea of 1,500 to 1,800 units and that density range of 2.16 to 3.0 that Cody noted, that's quite a bit different than the 1.4 to 12 units per acre that the future land use plan opens the doorway for. Then there's the Grand Junction circulation plan. And this is an adopted document that tells us what the existing and proposed roads are. You'll see Broadway in red, which is designating a principal arterial. You'll see the Redlands Parkway and South Camp in a dark blue, and they're designated as major collectors. You have Renaissance and Canyon Rim off the bottom of the slide. which are in light blue, and they're designated as minor collectors. And then you have two proposed roads through the site. One that on the city's plan would come off of Renaissance, and the other one that comes off of Canyon Rim. In the course of doing the Renaissance project, this was not practical. You couldn't take the road straight up the hillside there. So that road connection is now ends in the Renaissance subdivision. The city at that time said, we would like you to connect Athens Way over and come off of Redlands Parkway. So that is the way we're moving with this. And we've been working on this Canyon Rim project down here, and I'll talk a little bit about that in terms of we've worked, we're going to be submitting that project, but we've gone to the city to do a lot of things to lessen those roads. We've asked for narrower roads under a alternative roads process, and we've been granted that. We're looking at traffic calming, but at this point in time, the circulation plan does call for the road to go up and over. This is the concept diagram of everything that you heard from Cody and where we're going in terms of respecting the four brothers. There's a corridor up between, forming actually six neighborhoods when you include Canyon Rim and the corner. The primary road system that goes through with the connection to Broadway here, Redlands Parkway, Canyon Rim. We're designing for large swaths of open space as well as some other areas. And this is the backbone of the drawing that we will be submitting to the city. This is the outline development plan. There will be additional information that'll be on this document, but generally it is following the concepts that we just showed you with the open space that is around the perimeters, the aisle through, the respect of the four brothers. You're seeing the road system that's coming through. We have some loop roads in here. I'm going to come back to this slide and talk to you about it a little bit more, but I can tell you that we have 3.2 acres of commercial, 54 acres of multifamily and high density, which is shown in the purple, 345 acres of single family, which is shown in the more turquoise bluish color, and I think it's it's 198 acres in open space, which is over 30% of the property. And we know that open space is what gets designated initially, but as these subdivisions develop out, we know there's going to be additional open space just in the efficiency and making for parks in those areas. This is an illustrative, and I intend it to be a little bit more informative than the ODP. The ODP will have all the nuts and bolts on it, but what we can start to show here is the variety of neighborhood types we're looking at. We've listed them as neighborhoods that have lots that are predominantly 50 feet wide or 60 feet wide or 70 feet wide, but we're not necessarily locking ourselves into that, but it did allow us to come up with the idea that there will be different product types. We'll have patio homes at one end, we'll have custom homes, and there's going to be certainly internal road networks, as well as the trails that you can see going down the drainages, the rim trails that are around the project, as well as new trails that will be put in place. We're also showing the idea of ponds, whether these end up being detention basins that are that we can rehabilitate, or whether they will hold water. We're still working through all the calculations on that. And again, as what was pointed out earlier, this is the slope map, but it's distilled to just those slopes that are over 30%, overlaid with the open space. So you can start to see how the open space that is being designated on this project generally includes all of those and preserves all of those steeper slopes. Likewise, the open space has been designed to work with the three drainages that go through the site. The trails map, we've identified, and this goes back to the vision and goals, but we've identified both the historic on-site and historic off-site trails. If you go online, you'll be able to see this, the color's a little bit better, but they're in the blue solid and blue dashed lines. There's new trails on site that are in gold, and there's some primary ones that that kind of form the axes that we've talked about. There's going to be future trails that are in the magenta. We know that those will come out of the subdivisions and be able to link all of the housing to the trail network that's there. We're looking at a pedestrian trail that is a complete circle of a paved 8-foot wide pedestrian trail for walking and strollers and the like there. We're recognizing the trail that goes across the Bureau of Land Management, and this team is working with the city and the Bureau of Land Management to discuss both the road and the trail. And again, you'll note the green spaces that are preserving the rims over here, and then this is looking down into the golf course. So back to the illustrative. There's 4 access points in the project. There's one at 23 Road, which is a reconfigured entrance. There's the Easter Hill connection where the trailhead currently is. There's the Redlands Parkway off of here, and at this point in time, we're showing also off of South Camp. And then there's the Canyon Rim. And the Canyon Rim is the one that we've been pretty intimate with in looking at traffic calming up here. But the other thing we've done at this level is we've taken the traffic calming into the project by purposefully not connecting the road here. Now, we may not win on that issue as we move forward with the city. There's been some discussions that they would like to have that connection. We don't see that as part of our vision at this point in time. And so we do like the idea of that having the pedestrian connection there as part of that 8-foot wide loop trail that we talked about. But again, not necessarily the automobile connection. You can see on this illustrative also, again, I've already touched on it, the product types, custom homes, patio homes, single family, multifamily, and the various lot widths that are there. Again, the open space has been repeated on all these documents, and it doesn't change in terms of its location or minimum amount of the 198 acres. There's also going to be developed parks within the open space. We're looking at neighborhood parks and pocket parks. The city, or we're talking with city park staff about possibly a larger area that maybe is some field space area. We have trailheads that we've identified. I skipped over it on the trail slide, but It's all the existing trailheads down on 23, over on Easter Hill. Also, as you come up, a new one at Canyon Rim, and then one up top. And then there's a couple of internal trailheads, one that would be in the vicinity of the trail system for the Four Brothers, and another one that was just over here in an area that got you onto some of the other existing trails. The vision is for a limited level of irrigation. The project does have irrigation water rights. We're not looking at providing irrigation water to the residences. There will be restrictions on the amount of irrigated turf those individual residences can have, but we will be using the irrigation water for rehab of disturbed areas, for enhancements at entryways, for these park spaces, which will be more than likely there will be areas of turf in them. And just for some of the select areas and maybe some of the art areas. I'm believing it's in the magnitude of, and don't hold me to this, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's in 340 shares along in that magnitude. Does anybody here remember? I'm sorry, 75 shares. Okay. Right, I think the bigger number was the gallons per minute that we could get out of it. So 75 shares is what Don was able to correct me on. Finally, I just want to briefly talk about a phasing plan because we are obligated to include a phasing plan with the city. They require some targets on phasing, and you've heard others say that this is like a 20 or 25 year project, and up until recently, we had to do everything in what, 10 years? And so you're artificially creating these phasing plans to make things happen. And on this one, we're able to show our best guess at this point in time of how phasing might go. This will likely change as time goes on, as this product becomes popular or that one doesn't. But it really is, it's not haphazard what we're showing up here. And at the same time, it's really our best guess until we know more. So I'm going to end my portion with going back to the backbone ODP document that we will be submitting, which is the culmination and simplification of everything we've been telling you about tonight. And with that, I think we're ready for questions, and anything that's too tough for us to handle, we'll ask the city to answer. Thank you. We're going to bring a microphone back to you so that everybody can hear. We need to be ready to shuffle this.
Did you say this was a presentation was online somewhere where we could see it?
I'm sorry. You can take your mask off, Dick.
Is this presentation online somewhere?
Yes, there's a site, GJ Speaks. You can go to the city website and find it, but I believe it's www.gjspeaks.org. Yes, I'm getting a thumbs up on that. And you will see this exact set of slides, as well as an audio that goes with it. Other questions?
Thanks.
I just have some concerns about the traffic that's going to just develop. I don't know if you've been around the Redlands Parkway, 24 Road, or Broadway. There's only two ways across the river. So who kind of decides what's going to happen with the bridges and the traffic flow to take these high impact roads that you spoke about and make some sound barriers, or, how's that all going to play? Is that you that has to do that, or is it the city that are together?
Yeah, it's both. And again, our civil engineers also here, who will be working a little bit on the implementation of those things, but there was a traffic study that's already been, we've already requested, and it's part of the submittal that goes in. And the way that works is that expert meets with the city. It was probably with Jared, and they set up baseline criteria, and then they go out there and take a look at with the background of what the city wants to see. The city wanted to see the 23 in South Broadway. They wanted to see down by the river. The city picked out these spots that were off-site, and they want to know the traffic impacts that are occurring there. And that study's part of this, as well as the internal traffic. Now, having those access points or not, of course, affects how traffic moves in and out of the development. So that's, we think we're pretty close with the plan on that, but there could be some changes that could affect those things, and then it would roll back into the traffic study. There's fees that the city charges. And so going to your answer on the study, we prepare the study on city baseline information. The city has to then be happy with it before moving forward. And is that a fair representation, Jared? And in that, it'll identify both the on-site and the off-site impacts. As for who pays for what, this project, as any project does now, pays a traffic impact fee. It's actually a traffic capacity payment, TCP. That price today is $3,000 or $4,000, and it's going to go up to $7,000 over the next 4 years, generally. Rough numbers. And so that's a per unit cost that is paid with each building permit. So that generates a pot of money that then goes towards off-site improvements. The on-site local roads are built by the developer. There are other classifications of roads that are shared between the city and the developer, but that's where it's at.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
In general, I think you guys are doing a fantastic job of looking at a lot of things, but there's one area that has caused me concern from the very beginning, and I'd like to ask a question about that. Could you put the slide back up on there that shows the drainage fairways coming off the 360 with the 4 blue arrows between the 4 brothers?
That was your slide. I don't remember which one it was.
I know you're looking into this because I've talked a lot with Jane about it.
Well, and I can also tell you, I'm already hedging my bet that I'll be handing this off to our civil engineer who's been working on looking at the drainage as well as detention, retention, and balancing those issues.
Okay, 3 arrows. This area is all high desert. Statistically speaking, we receive an average of 8 inches of rainfall a year. Now, the one question that I'm going to ask in terms of volumetrics is, if you look at phase one. Could somebody put a point on phase one?
Phase one is generally in.
To the left, yeah.
This corner up here. I think there's also a little bit down in here.
Okay, the main part I'm asking about is at the corner. You have the entire valley sitting between your area, Easter Hill, and the monument. You have every home in there, just about, that is irrigating the land. A substantial percentage of this irrigation goes into the groundwater, flows north, and splits and goes around Riggs Hill, goes through that small gap, dead center across that middle of phase one. I would like to know what your comparison of the volumetric flows of the three areas that you are making a major point of for drainage that you're looking at versus that one area that is capturing all this water from all that irrigation, from all that drainage, that actually has marshland on it, that has wetlands in it, that has water flowing through it, and you're putting an apartment complex dead center in the middle of that. Do you have any numbers?
I'm going to hand this over to Mark, but I'm also going to add two things while he's walking up here. One is we have had the wetlands mapped on that recently, and so we are following through with that. And two, there are no solid designs at this point in time as to what's dead center on that site or not. We are targeting putting multifamily in there, but anything we do would have to work with the drainages that are there.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I don't know if you've ever tried to walk through that area. It's so vegetated and so heavily covered that one of our first challenges, quite honestly, is to try to figure out how to get an accurate topography of that area so that we can complete the analysis that you're just talking about. So that's one of our first tasks to look at. Is we've got the wetlands investigation work that was recently completed, but our next step is then to get in to do some accurate topography work so we can better define the water channels down through the property. All of that historic flow that comes onto this site will have to get conveyed through the project site. We'll have to address that as part of our wetlands mitigation work. And to answer your question, we're not there yet. We're still trying to get the surveyors into that jungle to try to get that topography picked up.
You showed trail entrances from offsite to the property in the northwest and south. Are you thinking that you would preserve the trail entrances on the east from the Ridges, Redlands, Mesa areas? And also, do you have plans to work with the surrounding HOAs and to try to preserve some of those trailheads?
We are, short answer is yes. We would look to make all those connections. We've even talked with the golf course about making a new or a more accessible connection between the clubhouse and up here. There's already city property that's in there, and so that connection is between the property that the golf course has, or I mean the owners of the Redlands have, and the city. We know we can make that connection to the east. There's some private property to the east that may not want that connection. That would, and we're in touch with them. We are looking to absolutely maintain and enhance the connections we're aware of from the south, which at this point is really coming, well, it's the Bureau of Land Management piece. And then getting up into that is out of our bailiwick, so to speak, out of the Canyon Rim area. We're consolidating and making, I think we have 3 access points there for off-site coming into the project, as well as through the project to get up to this property. And I don't think we're in the position to make any other connections to the west because of ownership, although we will probably be looking at taking one down off the Saddle Point towards Renaissance and down that way, and making a connection in that vicinity.
And I just wondered if you have a number of units that you're looking at for the high density areas?
Within the high density themselves, have we,
The first phase is the one right off South Camp. And I just want, are you looking at, what kind of numbers are you looking at for that high density as far as units?
yeah. You know, I can only speak to the average, which we were looking at, I think up to 400 units on all the acreage. And how much, can you see on that how much it was? We had like, what, 54 acres? And that would say our average is 4, and that's not realistic. The average is very likely going to be closer to 12. Correct me if I'm wrong, Don or Doug, but I think it would be potentially in the vicinity of 12 in those areas.
One of the things that should be noted too is when you say multifamily, multifamily is a broad spectrum of different attached product. We're not necessarily talking about a 4-story apartment building every time we talk about multifamily. The density that Ted is referring to is an average. And so we haven't gotten to the point where we can specifically say what multifamily is at this point, just because that's a whole level of detail that comes along further in the project. But the average density that we are expecting is going to be 12 dwelling units per acre with the multifamily.
Okay, so the units that you're looking at for that specific area is, I don't know how many acres you've got there. Up off South Camp when you come in off Broadway or South Broadway?
So again, you're getting out ahead of us on this because we're still just trying to get the entitlements and permissions. But I think we're looking at this point in time, what's only been sketched out is a townhome type product that would be probably in the vicinity of 8 units per acre at that spot.
Yeah, so how many acres was that? So we've done averages with that particular parcel. We haven't, again, that is for phase 1, but we need to go through this entire process before we can actually look at phase 1 to know that that's what land use we're going to be doing there. So that's why our attention is in Renaissance and Canyon Rim at this point. But with early studies on that corner piece, at the average of 12 DU per acre, we would be able, or we could assume that we would get about 180 units in there. Now we've done studies on that corner piece, and basically they're rough studies to understand what type of product would go in there. And one of the studies that we did got about 83 units. So you can see the range that you're looking at. 180 means, yeah, that might be something of 2, 3, 4 stories. We don't know. But just being transparent on what we've done and the density that we have, that's, 80 to 180 is the range that we could be looking at for that corner piece.
So the traffic would come in off South Camp? Through the
It would,
multifamily?
well, that would be one entry point. It could also come off, there'd probably be two entry points, one off of South Broadway and one off of South Camp.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Just a quick follow-up to what I have just heard. The last two questions that you have basically answered, you have answered with, it's preliminary, it's too soon, this is what we're just now starting to work on. This is phase one with a date of 2021, which is 6 months away.
We have to have some date on that phasing plan, and by the time we finish it up, it may say 2022 on it, but 2021 is also 12 months long. It's going to take us another probably 4 to 6 months to get this approved, And when at some point in time, either there's a strong enough feeling that it's going to get approved and we could move ahead with the planning on that, or we wait till the end until you start the planning on that. But it's, again, it's the best we can tell you at this point in time. As we go through this, we may find out some traffic things that would change that right there. We may find out some wetlands things that will change that. But with the work we've done so far, which really is substantial, that's the direction we're heading.
On the west side, there's 3 rectangles kind of north of the water tower. What is the ownership of those, and are they going to get stranded and effectively become, yeah, those are the ones that effectively become open space because nobody can develop them?
Those are not owned by this developer, and the city will make us provide access to them. They won't be, they can't be isolated. Gosh, it's looking good, guys, because we're going to have to kick you out in 8 minutes so that we can clean the place for the next meeting. So we got 8 more minutes of questions if you have any. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Doug? Summarize?
My thought again is the traffic issues. You're working with the city. That's great. That's fantastic. But there's also county roads and there's state highway that will be impacted. So who coordinates all of that? Plus the traffic fees that you guys are paying for the development. The reason they're going up is because they don't cover the costs that will be needed totally at this point. So how do we do a gap analysis between what we've got, where we need to go, and how much it's going to cost above and beyond the fees that you're paying?
Mr. Prohl, would you like to answer that one? Trent Prohl's head of public works at the city.
Good evening, Trent Prohl, Public Works Director here with the City of Grand Junction. Great question. I thought Ted was going to cover that in the first time it was answered, but or first time it was asked. But anyway, bottom line is we're going to be working very closely with CDOT and Mesa County on the extension and expansion of the roads there along C340, as well as Redlands Parkway and any intersection improvements there at South Camp Road and South Broadway as well. As far as that gap, yeah, if they're They're developing 1,400 lots times, say, $5,000 on average, because we're not going straight to $7,000 to begin with. That happens in a phase-in period over 4 or 5 years. So if you've only got, say on average 5,000, there's about $7 million worth that the developer will be paying towards on-site or off-site improvements. So we'll be working with them, and they may have some other off-site improvements, say as the intersection of 23 Road and Broadway, that may be 100% on them, while the rest of the expansion really is paid for by all the fees, by all the development out there on the Redlands, as well as by our regular property taxes and sales taxes that we pay. That will also come into part of the solution for improving the transportation capacity needs out there as the community continues to grow. Yes.
Is there anyone looking at the bridge capacity on the Redlands Parkway?
So the question was anybody looking at the bridge capacity on Redlands Parkway? And actually, some of the improvements that we've estimated already for Redlands Parkway, it was actually designed for right at 4 lanes. It's a tight 4 lanes. So that would mean the pedestrians would be and the bikes would be off of that. And so we would need to construct, if we don't replace the Parkway Bridge in its entirety, we would need to construct new bike ped facilities off to the side in order to convert the existing structure back to a 4-lane structure, like it was originally 4-lane structure that was originally proposed. So yes, we are looking at that there long term, but we are also looking at the bridge. I think was constructed in '84, opened in '85. So you're already looking at a 35-year-old facility. Generally, they last in between 60 to 70 years. So we'll be looking at that long term as well.
So I want to thank you all for coming. You can still send letters, questions to Kristen. Oh, Jane, I'm sorry. We'll let Jane say something.
I am Jane Quimby, and I'm the local project manager for Redlands 360, and I want to give you all a email address that we're in the process of developing a website that will be dedicated just to information regarding this project. So you'll be able to go look at construction scheduling, information about the trails, information about future community outreach meetings. We'll post a lot of the development when we do an application to the city. Some of that information will be posted there. I'll post someone was asking about a website, post that so you'll have access to it, not just at the city website, but it'll be kind of a one-stop shop. That website's not active yet because we're still obviously creating the content for that. But if you are interested in being contacted directly, all you've got to do is shoot me an email. The email address is redlands360info@gmail.com. Again, that's redlands360info@gmail.com. So if you'd like to be notified when the website is ready to go, just shoot me an email and then I'll put you on the distribution list. I'm not going to sell your information to anybody or bother you with unwanted emails. But if you do want to kind of create that link, in addition, if you've got questions or comments, you can address them to me using that website or using that web address, email address. And I'm also happy to meet with you in small groups or individually if you've got questions and comments. Happy to reach out and host or have you host me. I'll be happy to come talk to folks that have questions as we move through the process over the coming 18 months. Yeah, that's 360. It is Redlands 360 info@gmail.com.
Thank you all.